Excuse me, can I please talk to you for a minute?
Sure. You look kind of familiar.
Yeah, you do too. I just wanted to know, do you know a podcast named The Podcast Is Mine?
Oh, I know that podcast.
I just wanted to let you know that it's mine.
No, it's mine.
Hello and welcome to The Podcast Is Mine. I'm Sunny
And I'm Bhushan Kumar.
Hey Bhushan, how are you today?
I'm very good, Sunny. How's it hanging?
Yeah, really low.
Oh, really? What, Christina Milian low?
Dip it low.
Dipping it low. Pick it up slowly then.
Oh my God. I'm sure that's going to come up on today's podcast. We're going to start by opening up our new tablet.
Oh,
which
yes.
is The Diary of a Zone One Ho.
The secret diary of a Zone One Ho.
Oh, is it secret?
So I think it's encrypted, isn't it? Like it's your fingerprint that opens it, or is it something else?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, you do need to finger it and then look straight into the camera.
And lots of you have been asking where you can pick this up, and like on our OnlyFans podcast we talk about there's an affiliate link, so if you just swipe up you can like help yourself to one as well.
Oh dear. Yeah, so today we're going to be a little bit nostalgic, aren't we? We're going to go back into the episode about the way we were.
The way we were, yeah. So we're going to talk about all kinds of things, how we used to do things. And do you know, it was funny, what really triggered this off was like recently, I think a lot of people, this is going to resonate with so many people.
Oh gosh.
I had to reinstall our internet router at home.
You install those? Are they just ready to go?
They are, but look, don't diminish my achievement, okay? That was
switched
hard
it on.
to do.
You switched it on.
I'm not technically minded. I can tell you what it looks good, but I don't know how to plug it in. No, it was really annoying. Our router was playing up, and like when you have a weak Wi-Fi signal, so you can't like download
moving it
stuff.
around.
Exactly. Like my Instagram was not loading fast enough. So we got a new router, and then like trying to plug it in, and there's always like this like worry that, oh my God, we're going to be without internet for like ever. And it's like, I don't want to get rid of the old one, but the old one is so patchy and unreliable. So it was just such an ordeal, and I was just like, surely you can pay people to come in and do this. And then like you go and look and see how much they cost, and you're like, I'll do it myself. It's okay.
I'll say that.
Exactly. I'll try and learn it. So yeah, that really kind of like got me thinking. And we were talking about it as well. We've been talking in quite a couple of our old episodes as well about how we used to like try and get stuff, didn't we?
No. It's so funny how I get a little bit of a throwback feeling when there's something that I'm trying to access that I'm having to find online by Googling it and looking for like a watch online for free tag at the end. And it's not something that we have to suffer with as much as we used to back in the past. Actually, we just didn't have access to stuff. I think that is...
No, you just had the instruction book that came with whatever device it was. And you had to read those rubbish diagrams, and then troubleshooting, your problem was never listed there, so you had to call this 0891 number, and it wasn't like fun dirty chat. No, it's like, well, have you tried turning it off and on again? And then one time you do it, I swear when they were online they had like some sort of button or something they pressed, so that suddenly it would magically work, and you were like, I just did that and it didn't work for me. But luckily the router was installed with no problems, and
I'm glad and you have access back to the internet, so you can see your OnlyFans page.
Exactly. Well, that was my biggest worry. I was like, what are people in the OnlyFans account going to think? And if you're wondering why we're plugging it hard, you'll have to sign up because we ain't going to tell you on here.
We're going to get to the OnlyFans lounge later on.
And we've got a juicy topic to go there, haven't we?
It's incredibly juicy. We will save that.
So, the great thing about the digital secret diary of a Zone One Home is it auto saves. So that auto saves that entry. So, Sunny, should we move to what we're going to talk about today?
Let's go for it. So, before the age of YouTube, Spotify, and Netflix, it's an understatement to say that consuming content was a challenge, like we've said. So, with limited ways to watch your favorite show or listen to music, half of the fun and the misery was the chase. Not helped by slow internet connections, if you had one, shady licensing laws, and limited ways to find information. So today we're walking down memory lane now as we remember the way we were.
Oh.
So Bush, and I want to ask you, what was your experience of using some of the following tools? So there's for music, remember Napster, LimeWire, and iTunes. So let's start with that.
Oh God! So I just remember it just used to take, because at home we only had the one home computer.
Yeah.
And everybody had to use it. And of course, like, I was always jostling with my brothers to try and like get time on it, because my younger brother was probably the most like active on it. And he was always like on MSN chat and stuff. And as a result, I didn't really get on MSN chat because I was like, oh, if he's always on there on MSN chat, it's not for me. And the only thing that I really used it for, because I was heavily into Bollywood at that time, and getting Bollywood music was always a challenge because had to go to like Southall or Wembley, mainly Wembley, and
to make the music.
to make the music, exactly. To buy like cassette tapes or buy CDs because I still remember that first time I saw a CD in HMV, and Bollywood CD, and I was so happy because I was like, yes, I never have to go Southall again. I was so overjoyed. But trying to get Hindi film music was such a challenge. So I always used to. That's how I kind of had to Napster and LimeWire, really. Yeah. And what was really good is like because the piracy is like rampant throughout the Hindi film industry. So those tracks and full albums and every bonus tracks and all the cover art were all available. So I was like, I'll take that. And then also because the other thing as well is like we could. I still listen to my iPod. And I used to put it all. That iPod could take a load. Let me tell you.
Oh my gosh!
It used to like take it all and more. It was like amazing. But you had you had all your library on there, and it was so useful to have. I mean, what about yourself?
Same, like what you were saying in terms of having such limited access. It was either we had Sky at the time, so it was.
So you were ahead of the pack already.
I know. I was. Well, I remember getting it a little bit because I remember when I was in junior school and everyone used to talk about different shows and they kept talking about Sister. And I'm like, what is this show? And we're going to definitely unpack that, aren't we? At one point. And I just thought, I really want Sky. And then we got Sky, and then we had MTV, so that was like a brilliant access to a lot of music. But it was back in the day when Sky had it wasn't Sky Digital. it was pre that when you had the car. Well, actually, we still put card.
The illegal one, yeah.
Well, yes, this was when we had
100 quid, and that was it. You never had to pay subscription again.
But then we had access to other channels, so you could tune it because it was like some kind of tuning that you could do. And I tuned in MTV Germany, and they had the best songs ever. But I remember thinking, I want to listen to this not in the lounge, and record it on a VHS. Because again, we didn't have Sky Digital at the time, and Sky Digital did not start with any recording facility. That was Sky Plus.
You had to do some SCART lead action in the back,
and it was still VHS. It wasn't digital.
It wasn't digital at all. No. And
it was a nightmare. So then I remember thinking, oh my goodness, it'd be great to download stuff. So when we got our first PC, I remember saying to Dad, we really need the internet because obviously we need to do lots of research. We had Encarta. You remember that site?
Oh my god, Encarta. Oh,
the way things work. Remember the way things work with the mammoth, the woolly mammoth.
So before Google Kids, we had Encarta, and Encarta
and
Britannica. Before that, oh my god, do you remember like when
that was Google?
Yeah, like if you wanted to be a good student, you wanted to get the whole set, and it cost like £10,000 or something ridiculous.
Oh my goodness, we got one bundled free with our computer that we got through. I remember getting the scanner and the printer and feeling like such a boss. Coming in, I was like, I got my Lexmark printer, everyone.
But Encarta was such a fraud as well because there was a new one every year, and like nothing changed.
I was like, excuse me, we're talking about history.
It's like 95 and 96. It's like the dinosaurs still like it was never updated properly. I've actually got very quickly. I just say I've got a really funny Encarta story. I remember like a friend of mine borrowed me Encarta, and because I was going to copy because you could install it yourself. Do you remember when like you didn't have to? You could install multiple stuff, or you could copy programs over to blank compact discs. So I'd copied it, and then I left it in my bag all day, and then it broke.
No.
And then and I was so bad.
Cheap.
It was like it was £120 I think at that time. And then for some reason so when I gave it to him, and I didn't realize it was cracked, and then he told me it was cracked, but I knew that it had happened.
When it happened.
Yeah. And then so I was like, well, I'll give you £20 for it. And he was so polite. He's like, oh no, you don't have to give me anything for it. He's a sweet guy. But I was like, no, let me give you £20 for it. And then I remember one of my other friends came and said, actually, I think you should give him more. And I was like, actually, you should stay out of it. I was having none of it.
Like, who is he doing the middleman negotiations?
Exactly.
I'll get you a cut, bitch. Just back off.
Like I offered to pay for it. He said no. I said, let me give you £20. He accepted £20. So it's like, who's this third bitch coming in? Honestly,
he definitely stole something from your bag.
He must have done something to me. Honestly, no. Do you know what his revenge was? Like do you remember the Spice Girls had this song called "Step to Me"? So they had a special Pepsi single in association with Pepsi. You had to drink enough Pepsi to get like a CD.
To get diabetes.
This is really the way we were. We had to like eat cereal and collect crisp packets to get free shit. There's none of this influencer gifted, all of that. We had to eat loads of sugar, put on loads of weight.
Exactly. Take to the supermarket and stand in the line.
God. Oh, you had to post it off to like some PO box, like some dodgy PO box, like God knows where, and then like like 5 weeks later, you'd get like a breakfast bowl with like a chip on it, and you'd be like, what? So there was like Pepsi, and we didn't drink Pepsi in our household. We were Coca-Cola drinkers because like brown families and all that. Like my mum was always like, Pepsi tastes cheap, so you had to drink Coca-Cola. And like, so there's this CD called Step to Me. It's a really good song by the Spice Girls. And I remember he loaned it to me, and he didn't like the Spice Girls very much. But then I think because to get me back for Encarta, he was like, no, you can only borrow it for like a night or something. And he took it back from me.
You're lucky that he borrowed it to you in the first place.
I know. I pirated it as much as I could. So I copied the compact disc. I recorded it on tape. The record and play. I made sure I had that song on record.
Oh my God, those were the days. But yeah, so that's the kind of throwback situations we had in terms of accessing stuff on CDs. It was before I had the internet. And then dial-up was a thing where it started to become a bit more affordable. And I remember there was one provider that we used. It was called IC24. I don't know if it still exists, .net. And it was free. You would dial a number. It would give you free internet access for 60 minutes, and then it would cut off, and then you'd redial. And it was quite busy, the line, because so many people were trying to get into it. So I remember just thinking, I'm going to get on for free. We're not paid. Because I think you just paid for the call time to use the internet.
Yes.
I can't remember what we
I think you paid a connection fee, and then
every time you used it.
Yes, or no, it was a monthly fee. So like I think it was like ours was like $17.99 a month, and then like we had like
even with the dialer.
Yes, but we had this box as well. So I think we had the Ethernet or whatever it's called, Ethernet, yeah. And I think because of that the phone used to clog up and then we had this box.
That's when it was broadband, wasn't it? Yeah,
and then it stopped.
Oh my gosh! So I just remember all my mum's friends would come over because they were like, we've been trying to ring you all week, but your phone's always engaged. And my mum was like, really? No, no one's on the phone.
It's like, we're here the whole time. I know.
No one's on the phone because normally this is again before my parents did not want to get a cordless phone. So we're like, no, we want to hit. I was like, seriously? So we had to sit in the bloody hallway and have our conversations with our friends after school.
Yeah. Oh my God, gossip lines. It was really, especially when there was a big gossip story breaking. Like if someone had gotten together or was breaking up, and you had to sit there and try not, and our prayer room was right opposite, and always have a parent in there and be like, and yeah, he put his hand in her shirt, really? Oh my God. And like, you're like, how can I have this discussion with everyone listening?
Well, at least you were self-aware. I had no clue that my parents were listening in for years, because I used to honestly bellow my voice down the corridor, and then at one point in time, I can't remember what my mum said, she started quoting things back to me, and I was like, oh my God, they've been listening all this time. Like, we're talking about complete nonsense. My mum used to say, you spent all day with them, and then you're on the phone with them all night.
I remember that made me think of like, there was this auntie when her daughter was going to sixth form, and my mum warned her. She said, like, do you know what, they spend all day at school, and then they need to talk on the phone. And then like the other auntie was like, yes, it's very important, they're always discussing schoolwork. And I remember schoolwork, and I knew the daughter, and I was like, that hoe ain't discussing schoolwork.
She ain't doing shit.
And it's like, no, nor was I, but I was sitting there in judgment, holier than that. I was like, she ain't doing schoolwork, let me tell you that.
Oh God. Yeah, so then obviously we had a reputation of clogging up the phone line on the phone, so I thought, now we can just use, I was in the MSN club, and oh my God, I loved Yahoo Messenger and ICQ Messenger. That one was a good one because it had the feature that WhatsApp were built in. When someone's typing, you can see it, but actually they would even show what someone was typing before they sent the message through.
Oh,
so people would start saying stuff, and you were like, I could see your spelling mistakes before you actually sent the message, and then I could see how you retracted what you were going to say. When you're having like a shade off with someone, because we were definitely doing that on MSN. But yeah, so I love those days of like logging on, and then my mum getting so frustrated, she would purposely pick the phone up, because if you pick the phone up, it would like go off for a little bit, and I was like, what's wrong with the internet? And then I would hear my mum saying, log off, and I was like, get us another line. Seriously.
Oh God, I was really envious actually of all my friends who had, because it was the same with us. We only had the one phone, and it was so crucial, because then in that time my mum's friends would call, like relatives would call. We get calls from India as well. God forbid any of those were missed.
They would happen at 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes. I remember I'd say to my dad, because it was always my dad's family, I was like, why do they call at 4 a.m? Because my mum would be like, oh, they called last night in the middle of the night. I was like, why at that time of night? And they were like, oh, they forget the time difference. It's like, how can you forget?
Yeah, you remember one time, but not every time. Like they'd call up for a chat at 4 a.m. and you'd be like, it's not hard to work out that we're 5.5 hours behind. Or 4 and a half. Yeah. One time you get, the worst though, I have to say, was like when those calls were like, like sad calls, and then like there used to be like something in your heart that would drop when you heard the phone ringing.
Happened.
And you're like, oh shit, what's happened? And then it was always awkward. I mean, so we're grateful like now that how quickly like all these things. It's so interesting how all of these things inform what we have now.
Yeah, no, completely. Like I don't even know what happened when WhatsApp came in. Did that just make India calls for free? Because I remember my mum used to buy these phone cards.
Libara phone cards.
I don't know what they were, but she'd like
scratch off the back.
Scratch on the back like it was some kind of scratch card. Then have the phone conversation, and then clearly something dramatic had gone on or something. So then she'd be like, "Screw this! I'm calling on BT."
That's when shit got real.
My dad, he was doing the bills. He was like,
"What did your mum say?" Oh my god! Oh my god!
The phone used to blow because how expensive with BT phoning India? It was like £2 a minute.
It was crazy. And do you remember like when the bill used to come in, it was itemized as well, so you would recognise your mum's number as well.
It's the only international one.
Oh, it's so true though. No, shit got real when you use the BT line to call India. You're so
like something's happened. She's like, I ain't got time to go to the post office or wherever they'd get them.
But those cards were dope though. Do you know? Because I remember like my mum would never. Yeah, they so were like. I think it was like 5p for like 60 minutes chat. It was
no.
I kid you not. So I remember once we used to buy a £5 card quarterly. And my mum would be on the phone for fucking ages, but she would also like always like she never used to dial it properly. She'd like, oh, the number name is like the number's not dialing. So I'd always go and dial it for, and then so I'd have to get in there like bloody like a switchboard lady, like connect. 1 moment, madam, and it's like because you have to like first you have to put in the PIN code, and then it's like after enter the full country code followed by the number you wish to dial, and then it'd be like, and then there'd be this long silence. You're like, oh my god, did the number?
And then you did it. After this really long silence, this anticipation of you and your mum looking at each other like, is it going to connect?
It was literally like working at NASA, wasn't it? Like watching the satellite land, or
oh my god!
And then like, and then also, do you remember there's that shade lady be like 192 minutes?
Like, oh my god, like, this conversation's going on.
It's like, that's it, no dinner tonight.
I'm going up to play my PlayStation. I'm going upstairs.
Oh god,
I completely forgot about that. You just reminded me.
I love that bills though. BT, that's killed me. Your mum doesn't know. And it's true. And what was so hypocritical is that I used to just cause so many arguments in general, like because like then my dad would go through and then like his numbers would be on there, and we'd be like, well, you're taking too long on the phone as well. So I pay the bill. That's why.
Because did BT also do that thing where if you put the phone down before 60 minutes, they wouldn't charge?
Yeah,
and we'd always forget. And my friends' parents would never. They would be like, "Oh, Sunny can call because it's free for him."
Free.
But I'd forget to put it down, and then we'd get charged. And I was just like, "Oh my god, Dad's gonna kill me when he sees the bill."
Oh my! But speaking of hidden charges, do you remember 1471, which is the greatest invention?
Oh, 141 as well.
Was that withheld number?
Yeah, withheld number.
But then, do you remember with 1471, if you press 3, you could call them. That was like Russian roulette. It's like sometimes if you just felt daring, you'd hit 1471 3, and let's see who picks it up. But you got charged for that. I know.
Did you? To connect the call?
Yeah. So they were so sly. Like, this whole advertising campaign, 1471, you can always find out who called you, blah, blah. And then if you press 3, and then 3, just call them straight back. And then there'll be that tiny print at the bottom that said every time you press 3, you get charged for it. And you're like, motherfucker, like what?
And you had to pay for caller ID. Because not that we had a phone that had caller ID. But remember when they did? We didn't have caller ID still. We're like, we don't know who's calling.
And I remember I watched Scream at the time. Do you remember Scream?
We've all had that moment with that white knit jumper. When no one's home and you're like, oh my god, I'm so scared.
And the popcorn crackling away in the background. But do you remember when she had called in Scream 2, I remember and it's like, hello, Sydney. And she's like, you're a caller 555, blah, blah, blah. She goes, and I was like, oh, that's so cool to have caller ID. Imagine you know who's calling you. And then sometimes, so 1471 was a blessing because then.
Does that still exist?
I think it does. I don't know who uses the landline anymore.
Need it because it's all on our mobile.
Like even 0800 numbers are free from the mobiles now.
Oh my god!
When they weren't for a while, they were
so
shady.
This is pre-mobile. All of this is pre-mobile.
But do you see how like the 1471, the withheld number, was all preempted?
It's like your wife. What's it? WhatsApp privacy setting. I've got all mine on private. No one's seen me.
Ain't no one coming in unless you
Last
want them
scene, you don't know. Sunny is
to. I know
not
it's just
available.
grey ticks. It's like, did he get it or not? I don't know.
I hate that. It's so much pressure because people expect replies.
Oh, it's the worst thing, isn't it? Because then, do you know when someone writes you a long ass message, and then like it takes
And
you
then
time
you
to
see them
read.
online.
Yeah,
And then,
yeah,
online.
and waiting,
And you're like-
it's like I'm reading what you're. I'm trying to digest what you've just told
But if
me.
you don't reply, there's just like, is everything okay? It's like,
God.
oh, I'm still reading your pretty War and Peace.
Because then, like, do you remember when the aunties would be really shady? Like, you know, if they didn't want you to get invited to somewhere, they'd be like, "Oh, your phone's not working," and you could get away with that.
You could, you know what?
You'd be like, you know, we tried your number, but it didn't work, or I tried to get your number from so and so, and that was a legitimate excuse. Whereas now it's just like, you know, if you like these, but these, when it comes to anything else, these Punjabi aunties are the bloody FBI. They can find out anything at all.
You know, they could see through the windows. They were looking spine. They had
They
everything
just
ready.
knew. It's like someone saw you down at the supermarket. Like your movements were tracked before Find My Friend or any of that. Like any of those
They're
apps.
more effective there.
Send a live location. Just ask auntie. Do you know what I mean? It's like, have you seen Simran anywhere? Like the network would buzz. Oh my god!
It's so funny because now that it's just reminded me, we didn't have mobiles. When we'd agree to meet someone, you had to be on time.
You had to be
That-
there.
we were. That was the only time I was on time for social stuff because we had to. I remember my friend saying, "I'll meet you at this place, WH Smith, at this time." You needed to be there.
You needed to be there. There was no, because the other thing was then you had to then queue for a phone box, and there would be someone in the phone box having a wank, or someone else doing like, you know, just talking forever. And then, like, you know, once you got in the phone box, it was like, put your 10p in. And your 10p would buy you, like, a breath. And then it would go. It's like, boop, boop, boop. And you're like, I just put 10p in. And I was so stupid. I used to, like, consult my mum on all my fashion purchases. So, like, I'd go and see something in a shop, go out, queue for the phone box, call her, Mum, should I buy it or not? And then she'd be like, oh, it's up to you. And then, like, go back. And I was like, why the hell did I do that? Whereas now it's like, take a picture, send it, you know.
Oh my god, it's so funny. And look, I just remembered my first original catfish moment. Not me. It was not me. It was a friend. There was a friend of mine. I can't. I might have to recap on the story offline, but broadly, there was a friend of ours that thought she was dating a guy who wasn't who he said he was, and she thought he was some Indian guy, and he wasn't, and he was. I don't even know why she was doing this. She was getting completely punked by these people, and we all knew that it wasn't who she thought it was, and she thought she was dating this guy for ages. And then we said, "Have you met him yet?" She's like, "No, not yet." And then I remember it came out, and I said, "Oh, do you know who he is now? He's not really an Indian guy." And she was like, "Yeah, he confided in me." And I said, "Oh, but we all knew from day one. Did you not know that?" And she was like, "No one told me that." It was awful, but that was the first original catfish moment.
That was a say my name moment. That was. There's no one around. Say my name. Oh my
Such
gosh.
shady moments with the BT phone booth.
See, and do you see how the writings on the wall formed all this? That feels like I'm still not over that. Sorry, I can't get over it. It's too much.
I did not think of that link until that moment. Oh god.
gosh.
But yeah, so we're digressing, but for epic moments, honestly. But also, let's go back to some of those ways that we would consume shows and how difficult it was. So now we have Netflix and Spotify, all these other shows, streaming platforms. But back in the day, if you wanted to watch something, it was the 5 channels that we had, and that was it.
That was it. And like, you know, there was the only way you could like fast forward. You know, you'd have to record it and then fast forward through the adverts, and then like if you were like adding it to your home library, you'd have to pause the adverts in between. You remember, so it's on record and you hit pause.
I definitely
had
had
to like you're
overboard on
editing
that.
exactly this kind of. And I remember like it used to be a matter of pride in the household. Like me and my younger brother were the best editors, so we'd hit pause when the advert screen came on. And what was really funny is when I actually started working in television, and then like when we used to get screeners ahead of time, that's how they did it. Like you'd have the clock,
Seamless.
and then you'd have like, you know, then you'd have like the end part or starter part, SOP or EOP, and I'd be like, oh my god, this is what I've been doing all my life, and I didn't realize like this is just standard industry practice.
But it's just reminded me, you probably know what this is. I remember when we were kids and we'd watch something and we'd know when the advert was coming because it was
the
this
little
black and
corner.
white. Why is that? And we were like, this is definitely a cue. I was like, why do they need this? It's so disruptive.
Yeah, it was for transmission. It was so that transmission.
Transmission.
I mean, like now the whole thing is like, because it's funny. The time I started working in the TV industry was like an interesting time because it was transitioning from like this, like tapes and all of these kind of like hardware to tapeless and digital.
Okay.
And so there was a lot of, in the beginning I didn't realize how manual it was. It was like,
so that's needed to be prompting someone to do something.
yeah, there was literally someone
no
sitting there the whole
automated
time. No, I remember there was one time that took delivery of a program. So when I say took delivery of it, this program had been made, so it had been filmed, edited, everything, and and the tape, it would arrive in like a massive videotape, but like an industry, really like kind of posh one. And then it would have to be checked. Our favorite thing. Who's going to check you?
Check your boot,
compliance. Yeah, exactly. So it have to make sure that it's editorially compliant, technically compliant. And there were times when like there was a show that was going to be on at 7:00 that night, and it had gone to press. It'd been, once something had been put in the press, that was it. It was sacrosanct. You couldn't take it. You couldn't pull it, because the advertisers were expecting it, the audience were expecting it. If you pulled it off at that point, you'd have to have a damn good reason for it to come off air. And so we'd get some program delivered at 4:00 because whatever reason production were running late, and you had to kind of turn it around and then take it to transmission. And literally this tape would be added to the lineup, and then it would play out. And it was so weird, like sometimes where all day would be like kind of trying to get this program like editorially and technically compliant and deliver it to transmission. And then I'd go home, and then that program would be on, and like my mum would be watching it, and like had no idea like how much
the process was.
How much had come into it. So it's so strange, like
we don't have that anymore. That ticket doesn't happen anymore.
No, so now it's all tapeless and it's all digital. So there's it's all done. So you can even play out stuff internationally if they've got strong enough internet. So this is how we get
streamed directly from some server here then.
Or they can, so for example, like when we have like on Sky there's simulcast, so when like Game of Thrones was on, or if there's a big US show,
same day, wasn't it?
Same day, but also same time. So like even though it's like 7:00 on the East Coast or whatever, we'll get it here at 2 a.m. in the morning.
But no one will watch it until probably the official time, which is...
Well, with Game of Thrones, people used to stay up and watch it on a Monday night. Sorry, on a Monday morning, because you wanted to be like ahead of spoilers and stuff.
This is the thing. So back in the day, we didn't need to worry about spoilers because there was no social media.
No, exactly.
Internet to kind of catch any...
Well, there was only the forums, and then like on the forums is where you would go and discuss stuff. So like the forums were just essentially chat rooms for... on a bigger scale. But people would like, and then also people were a lot more like friendlier then as well, because like there was a kind of like real community and solidarity. So, does anyone have a link to this show? Here you go. Or does anyone know where I can download this torrent? Or this site seems to have gone down. Do you know another site where I could get it from?
And it's not as if we weren't willing to... Well, we weren't actually.
No, we
weren't. To pay for anything. I was going to say, I wasn't willing to pay for anything as a 12-year-old girl. That was like, I ain't got no coin. But the thing is, there was no way of accessing this stuff.
No.
And it's funny because just last week I was thinking about this episode and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm still doing some of the old shenanigans to watch stuff, because there are some shows that I still can't watch here. Yeah. Because I know we have like Hey You and all these other kind of subscriptions you can add on, but there's one show, Survivor, I still cannot watch in the UK.
Yeah.
Why is it not here? This is the thing that frustrates me. Why do they just not make it available? It shouldn't be that hard. It's
so true, and especially like in this day and age where nothing is too niche or no audience. Because before it was always about audience numbers, wasn't it? Where you had to like justify it. But now with the streamers, it doesn't matter if your program gets 10 viewers, because as long as someone's watching it, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
And to your point with the Survivor thing, I imagine that they don't think, whoever's buying the acquisitions, people may not think that it's going to do well.
I think it clashes with I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, because they did do one season of Survivor in the UK years ago. I think I remember who won it. She was this police officer, this lady. She was brilliant. I loved the show, and I thought, oh my god, this is an amazing show. I think it actually started in the UK first.
Oh, okay.
And then the US picked it up, and it's like their most popular show. It's ridiculously popular. And I remember thinking, oh my god, it will come here eventually. Like Real Housewives came here. All these shows have come, but this one, I think, because we have I'm a Celebrity, and it is that same kind of survival concept. They do the whole, the Bush Tucker challenge stuff,
eat testicles,
all those kind of things. They do that, and they do all these competitions. And I just think they're so far gone now to kind of reintroduce this into the mainstream, but just make it available for free. Like, like
Absolutely.
on the systems.
Well, I mean, a lot of people nowadays do the VPN, which I've recently learnt about. Where
Are they effective though? That's the only thing I didn't know.
Well,
to get Hulu.
It worked for like ISIS, like in terms of like all.
I thought you meant ISIS from America's Next Top Model.
I know that took you a moment to register there. It's kind of ISIS. Like, why would she need to watch Survivor in England? And I was like, no, I'm talking about the terrorist organization. No, I mean in the sense that, like, actually, this whole idea. Like, I remember seeing it on 24, I think, once, where the signal's scrambled, so it looks like you're actually watching in Afghanistan when you're actually
changes the location.
When you're actually in Aberdeen. But the VPN does that, so you can actually. Not that I'm encouraging anyone to. So don't even try and sue us.
Is that even legal?
Well, I don't know. I think it's a grey area, and like I don't want to like kind of.
We're not advising it.
We're not advising
just talking
it.
about
and also,
what people do. We don't do it.
I don't want any legal egos like kind of like dipping into the law and tidying it up so that we can't do that. It's like this is your time off, so don't. So stop doing that. But that allows you to watch programs abroad. Without, and it doesn't recognize the geo barrier.
Yeah, it just assumes your IP address is based in wherever location that you've set it to.
It'll redirect it for you, which is
No, that's a good segue into what really changed at that time, because Napster was it was such a short-lived thing. It was a couple of years, wasn't it, before all of the music industry kind of took it all to court, didn't they? And they said that they didn't want this, infringing copyright. But us as users, there's no law against us accessing something that someone else has uploaded. There's no copyright infringement in that side. It's the person making the copy available.
It's a grey area. It's really, like, I know what you mean. That's how because I used to think that as well, and then since I've kind of delved into copyright law and like had experiences with it.
Oh my goodness! Are you going to tell me I can't watch Survivor the way I'm watching it now?
I don't. Well, I mean, for
for
the record, I don't know how you watch it now. Wink, wink.
I buy it on DVD.
Yeah, I mean, you buy it on DVD in the UK, or when you go to the US on your trips. That's when you watch it.
Locked?
I wouldn't know. I'm afraid.
I bought a DVD player in the US.
Oh my god! Do you remember DVDs when they had regions? And there was this whole palaver about: is it region 1? Is it region 2? Is it region?
Games have the same issue.
I mean, like they tried to make DVDs like Zone 1, Zone 2, Zone 3,
and it don't work.
It didn't happen. I'm sorry. Like a Zone 1 Ho is not the same as a region 1 DVD.
Do that now?
No, because then they realised that they were limiting themselves in doing that. So then there was this whole, and then also, what's really amazing about all this technology is people always found a way around it. Isn't it amazing that there would always be someone who found a trapdoor or a Trojan horse and be like, right, these DVDs are region specific. We're going to create region 0 where you can play it anywhere in the world. Because then if you do that, then that multiplies the market. I think like I think actually in some instances we were ahead of the industry in how we were doing things, and in between, and then like the industry was like, actually, first, I think they were trying
to combat it rather than embrace it and think, how can we monetize off this like they have now?
Exactly that. That's the whole music debate, isn't it? Like, when people were downloading from LimeWire and Napster, the artists and stuff weren't getting their royalties.
Which isn't fair, and I agree with that. But then let us have a way to access it. How do we access that stuff? We can't.
Precisely. And then, like, if you didn't want to buy the full album or something and you wanted, and that's why something like Spotify is such a great like app in that respect, because it allows you to, instead of carrying around like a whole did you ever have a wallet full of CDs?
You know what, I hated it. I absolutely hated it. It was so much extra space in your bag.
Oh god, I mean, like first it was tapes. I was because I'm a dinosaur.
I had a cassette as well,
and then you do your own little mixtapes.
Oh my god.
Do you remember, like on the radio, and then like sometimes you get like the radio voice, because I didn't realize, I learned afterwards that recording off the radio was meant to be legal, because again,
that was illegal as well.
Apparently, because the artists would not get their royalties if we recorded off the radio. But I mean, the thing is, these areas are so difficult to enforce, and they're so grey, and there's a responsibility on the part of like the radio and the music industry as well to educate people.
I think people have also realised, actually, look, exposure is good as well. Rather than block it and stop it, you're getting exposed to new audiences that potentially are not going to pay, and that will lead to something else, another opportunity, just getting your name out there.
It's so true. I think, sorry, just quickly add, like that's why I think we've moved to these kind of like subscription models with a Netflix, a Hulu, a Spotify, where you pay a certain amount every month. That seems to be the only way to really kind of monetize it in a way that works. Because then otherwise people would be like, I ain't paying that. No. Whereas like, they have to offer so much more to get us to pay, because previously, otherwise we'd have to pay like 20 quid for something which you could only watch once or something. It was a waste.
And you didn't want it. Why? And think about the physical media that is just being wasted. Like, how many DVD box sets have I got now under my bed that I just do not need?
Do you even have a DVD player?
My PlayStation 5 does.
Oh yeah, yes. We used to, and then
otherwise it wouldn't. I wouldn't have one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then did you have? Does it play Blu-rays as well?
It plays Blu-ray as well. Yeah. Which again, so these are the things. I mean, I remember. You know what? The first DVD player we had was our second PC, or was it our first one? And I remember the first DVD that I ever borrowed. I'd never had a DVD like to watch because we didn't buy any because we didn't. It wasn't really a big media. And then one of my friends was like, "Oh, my parents just bought a DVD player and we've got some DVDs." I was like, "Oh my god, what have you got?" And she gave me The Faculty.
Oh my god!
Was it Josh? Not Josh Hart.
Josh Schwartz? No.
Josh Hart.
Josh Hartnett. Yeah.
Was it Josh Hart? No, it wasn't Josh Hartnett. It was. Usher was in there, and there were so many classics.
It was one of those because one of my first DVD was something similar. Can you guess what it was? So let me give you a clue. It was released in 1999. It's an iconic teen movie. It has a real life couple inside of it, and it won the MTV award in that year for Best Kiss.
Spider-Man.
Excuse you?
Spider-Man. Best Kiss when they were upside down.
I think that was probably year 2000. It was the year before that. One of the characters in this film played an iconic vampire slayer.
Oh, Sarah Michelle Gellar and Freddie Prinze Jr.
Yeah. Ryan Philippe.
Was she with Ryan Philippe? No.
Oh no, she was with Reese Witherspoon. Oh my god, what am I even talking about?
Oh my gosh! I know Ryan Philippe because he is my favorite.
I want to talk. Excuse me. Can I talk to
you in a minute?
Do you know Ryan Philippe? Cruel Intentions was my first ever DVD.
Oh my gosh, that was such an epic movie.
So good. I mean, I remember I saw it in cinema, and then after seeing it in cinema, I was like, I want to see it again.
Such a cool movie.
It's so good. I mean, like everything about it is like, so we've got Sarah Michelle Gellar, and then taking it was like Gossip Girl before Gossip Girl, and then don't forget Joshua Jackson was in it as well.
Joshua Jackson,
Pacey from Dawson's Creek.
I never watched Dawson's Creek. That was just one I couldn't get into. I know.
Do you know what it was? What I loved about it was just so whiny and entitled. These children had like everything. They had so much privilege that it was crushing them, and it was so difficult for them to. And the worst thing was watching it and thinking, I wish I had that much privilege that that I'd have all these problems that you have. Honestly.
Oh, I've just googled the cast of
the Faculty. Oh my god, let's see, isn't it?
Josh Hartnett. Elijah Wood. I forgot he was in it.
Famke Janssen as well.
She was in it. Oh yeah, she was the teacher, wasn't she?
Robert Patrick from Terminator 2, one of my favorite films ever. Best film.
Is probably the best. You know what? That film holds up still today.
It's so good. It looks amazing. Honestly, I love that film today. That is a film that I can say line to line.
Yeah, it was my brother's favourite movie series, the first and second. And I remember, because we watched the first as kids, again on VHS. And I remember when, I think we talked about this in the podcast once, when we recorded it like we did. Yeah. And we'd obviously paused for all the... no, actually, no, we didn't.
No, because it was on BBC.
Because Dad recorded that because it was quite late at night. And then the next day, we were watching it and I was like, oh my goodness, I can see the sex scene with Sarah and Reese. Dad paused it.
Oh no!
Dad paused it. I was like, oh, great.
Oh, no.
I loved Reese.
Reese, oh, bless him. Do you know, it's so funny. I was just about to say, I have a similar story. So we, Kickboxer was our favourite film when we were growing up.
I've never seen that.
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Oh, damn.
It was like, when he was at peak fitness and everything. Oh, wow. And I remember we watched it and there'd always be this like fuzz in the tape at a certain point. And then as an adult...
Could have got worn out.
Yeah, no, we did wear it. Honestly, my brother loaned it to somebody and that wanker just watched it non-stop. And it took ages for it to come back to us. But we used to, whenever there was like a downtime, it was like Kickboxer or Terminator 2.
I need to see that, Kickboxer.
Like, there was a whole series of films like Kickboxer, AWOL, Bloodsport, Double Impact, when Jean-Claude had a double role. Oh my God, and Time Cop. Oh my God,
Robocop.
Demolition Man. I love Demolition Man.
Have you seen Stop or My Mum Will Shoot?
Oh my God.
That is on Netflix the other day. I watched it back.
Oh my God, I'm going to watch that.
You need to, and what surprised me, there's one scene when Sylvester Stallone's in bed and his mum walks in. I can't remember what she's doing because he has trouble sleeping. Check out his underwear. Let me know what you think. Because I was like, oh, I didn't think Sylvester would wear those. It's like a thong.
Well, he's done porn before. You know that he started doing porn in like early on. Like there's one of these shows, like these compilation shows, like how did they begin? Before they were famous and all of that. But coming back to Kickboxer very quickly, I remember then, like years later, watching it, there was a sex scene in it, and I I was like, what? I swear there's no, I was like, this, you know,
got
on
the censored
a director's
version?
cut or something.
Yeah, the Indian dad director's cut.
Honestly, so my dad had actually got it from someone at his workplace, and the work person had said, look, this is 18, your boys aren't 18. So they had taken it upon themselves to be the BBFC and cut out the sex. But what's crazy is if you see the violence in that film, like, because he obviously undergoes a lot of training to, basically, the premise of the story is, there's no spoiler.
Yeah.
His brother is a kickboxer, a martial artist, and goes up against this horrible man, a horrible fighter, who actually had a very similar plait to yours, you know, when you did your Eurovision tribute
to
Slavko. And this man basically beats him so badly, he ends up in a wheelchair. So then Jean-Claude Van Damme obviously like decides, I've got to avenge my brother. And then he goes to this like wise Thai man who trains him
I
up.
think I've seen it.
And he drops like coconuts on his six pack, and like he splits his legs open. Honestly, like some of it is like more BDSM than like you know.
You actually got the uncut version. What are you talking about?
Well, this is what I'm talking about. Some of the stuff that they were doing, I was like, now that you know, when I heard about kink for the first time and bondage, I was like, this is what they did in Kickboxer. Why is this like? Yeah. No, even worse, at the end, you know, the villain, he puts wraps around his hands, sticks his hands in glass, and then licks it so his tongue bleeds. That was okay to make it through. The sex scene, which is, you know,
they're so rubbish.
which is just like what you see at the bus stop these days. You know, a bit of heavy petting, a bit of buttock, a top of a boob, and then it's done. That was cut out, and I was just like, Asian parents, they don't mind you seeing like violence and horror, but God forbid you see like a nipple or a vag or anything like that, because that might, you know, trigger something off. Honestly,
what's funny is Mum and Dad didn't really mind us seeing those kind of scenes because we were watching it together. They were like, we'd giggle. I remember we'd giggle. Oh, my mum would put her hands over my face. I put them over her face. She was like, my mum was like, I can look.
Oh my God! In the days before the remote control, you had to run through the TV and change the channel. Remote controls change the game.
You know what I did once? I remember it wasn't even that long. It was probably about 10 years ago actually. So we were all adults. I remember it was fighting about who was going to watch what. And I think my brother had watched some football match on the Saturday. I'd come home from university and I was like, that's it. I am picking what we're watching. So I was like scanning through the channels, and then I put on because I was being so indignant about having the remote, I put on Cabin Fever. Have you seen that film?
That's really dirty.
We all watched that together.
Oh God,
it was horrendous. My brother walked out partway through, and I thought, I have to own this. I have to watch it.
Exactly, you have to commit to it after.
It was the worst film. I even messaged one of my friends and said, "Is this going to be okay to watch?" And they were like, "Yeah." I was like, "I'm with my mum and dad." They didn't tell me. They didn't know.
They let you walk into it. Honestly, it's like when we used to watch Game of Thrones with our mum, and like everyone was like, "You watch Game of Thrones with your mum," and I was like, "Do you know what? We are now like if you know, fast forwarding sex scenes or avoiding sex scenes was an Olympic sport, we would win gold medals."
Someone would always go to the kitchen at the right time. My brother always knew how to time it.
Yeah. my mum would just like, it would always, the worst, like, most of the time, like, I think this is why I'm so into like content creation, because we were so invested in it. You're like so ready for like, oh look, they're gonna get intimate, right, get ready, like, you know, on standby. And then like the moment, like, you know, just
switch
like,
channel.
Even a kiss, it'd be like, switch channel, or change something, or just like kind of change the channel, or
pretend you were busy with something else, or start a conversation about something.
It'd be like, Mum, is my pee kit clean for tomorrow or something?
For next week.
For next week, exactly.
I'm calling in sick tomorrow because I don't want to do pee.
Exactly, or reach for a cushion and just put it over your lap and just be like, It was so awkward. Oh my God,
so many, you know, hilarious moments that we've completely gone off track, but I love it. I absolutely love it. So then, talking about the streaming platforms that we've just mentioned, do you think we've got too much choice today?
Do you know, I think we do. I mean, like, it's so strange that we're in the midst of a pandemic and there's still too much to watch. Like, you remember how we would all, pre-pandemic, we would all say that, oh, do you know what? If we had like all the time off in the world, we could finally watch all these programs and like get ahead of it, and there'd be nothing left to watch. I'm sorry, I still have so much to watch.
I still haven't started Game of Thrones. I said it's taken a pandemic for me to maybe try
to make me consider it. But this is the thing, I think we've got so much choice now. And then I think also, like, on the kind of topic that we're on, nostalgia, I think that's added to it now, because then revisiting shows that we saw previously. I mean, I remember that when I was younger, I saw Butterflies, which was like an amazing British comedy by the writer Carla Lane. And that I was lucky, that was in the 1970s that it was originally on. And in the 1990s, they decided to repeat it. And because there was nothing else at that time, there's only 4 channels. That's kind of the reason.
Oh yeah, 5 came after.
5 came in 1998.
Spice Girls launched.
Yes, you remember as we
Spice
covered.
Girls have like some kind of spot on this show.
The Spice Girls, honestly, are just like iconic. They did so much in our lives.
They were
honestly.
overexposed.
Because they were also like another reason why I kind of went to these music sites and stuff. Like because, you know, before I could get the Spice album or before, you know, any kind of like, you know, Spice Girls snippet, I was so desperate for. So I'd got my smash hits, I'd got my top of the pops, but then I'd also want to know, like, you know, if they were on TV and they were doing Noel Edmonds or something.
You knew to watch it, didn't you?
Mm-hmm. Whenever they had a single out, they were on every show, like non-stop. And I had to watch all of them because like, even though they were just doing the same thing over and over, you never knew what you might miss. But I do think we have a lot. Do you think we have a lot of choice as well?
Yeah, I'd struggled before the pandemic. Now I still struggle. I don't know what it is. I'm not really someone that likes to invest a huge amount of time in that. I think I like to switch off when I watch TV, and now they're making such great program that you need to really be engaged with. Yeah, and I feel like I want to give it my all and not be fanning around with my phone. So I already feel like I'm still catching up from shows that I've already finished. Yeah, but it is good to have the choice. I think it's better than not. But what's also nice is the throwback point that you mentioned in terms of them bringing other shows back. And actually what made this a big thing, wasn't it Breaking Bad that started that off? Yes. Because they realised that actually giving everyone the full show in one go is effective and not making people wait every week. And the whole reason that happened is because advertising. Yeah. That's what people wanted. They wanted to make sure that they had long enough to eke out more adverts to charge a high fee for, because that makes them money rather than making a really good show that's disrupted with an advert every so often. So true. I mean, like Breakpart, I remember, again, going back to a bit knowing what I know now, when I entered the TV industry, so the Ofcom rules used to state back in the day that you had to have like a 5-minute uninterrupted part in the beginning. Then you could put an ad. Sorry, I think it was 10 minutes. Yeah, it was 10 to 12 minutes. Could not be interrupted by law. It was regulated. But then the regulations changed, and then you could have 5 minutes, and then you could pop an advert in. And then, like with product placement, which we now have in this country, again, when that P symbol came up, I remember that when we heard about it at work, and there was a meeting, and it's like, you know, now, you know, if Nescafe want to sponsor you, you have to put a P symbol in there. If you don't, then they can say that, you know, it contravene. And what was really weird is that Ofcom, they allowed this. So Ofcom is the British, for anyone who doesn't know, it's the British Regulatory Board for Television. And they said that if you've got to always show when you're doing product placement, so you're not misleading the viewer. Of course. And if it's subtly an advert. Yeah. And if you don't do it, then you get fined for it. But what they didn't think about was the advertisers were like, well, do you know what? Exposure is exposure. If my Nescafe gets to like 5 million people, whether it gets like, you know, I'd happily pay the fine. But then what the Ofcom have done is they've said the broadcaster has to pay the fine, not the advertiser. So for the advertiser, it's a win-win, but the broadcaster has to be really, really vigilant about making sure that because, you know, sometimes you'll be watching a film or something and then they'll lead into these car adverts, and these car adverts are as good as any film. Honestly, they're of cinematic quality. So you don't know, am I watching, like, you know, it's like, why is Audi in this like period film? You're like, you know, I swear they didn't have Audi. Didn't they go by horse and carriage? And then you'd be like, oh shit, it's an advert, and then like kind of takes you out of that space. So so I agree with what you said. Like, because it wasn't like when we were younger. I remember that in an hour you would get one at 20 past and one at 22 adverts. That's what I remember when I was a kid. And then something changed. It was when I used to watch X Factor probably about 5-10 years ago. And then they started doing one straight after the first kind of intro, and I was like, hold on. I was like, you've just started the show and nothing's happened.
It was so annoying, and it really disrupts and like you said, because I think what the big point is, and talking about the nostalgia and everything, is that we have especially in the UK, we have such an emotional connection to our television content, don't we? Like, we can remember our moments of our lives from it, living through, you know, like watching Princess Diana's funeral on the TV, or watching, like, you know, I don't know, the weddings.
Nasty Nick cheating Big Brother. That was an epic moment.
All these iconic moments, and like, I think they're so emotionally embedded with it. So that's why with our TV, it's not a simple case of like they create a product, we buy it. It's more than that. It informs our culture. It informs our way of thinking.
Everyone talk about the same thing next day.
Yeah, exactly. And like you were saying as well, some shows, like some documentaries, really demand you concentrate because you learn from them. Yeah. There have been so, like, you know, the David Attenborough Planet Earth.
Has he done another new one recently?
I think
I need
he
to
has.
watch it now. There's like 7 worlds, 7 continents or something.
Something like that, yeah. He's always doing something.
He's
Bless him,
brilliant.
uncle.
He's a legend.
But
Complete legend.
he also met Greta Thunberg as well.
Yes, I saw because she did an interview, didn't she?
So that was like a great show. But that's what I mean. Like, so documentary, and they have the power to change as well. So like, it's interesting.
It's absolutely brilliant. I have loved unpacking this episode. It's been absolutely hilarious. Okay, so thanks to the advent of digital and technology rapidly advancing, watching your favorite show or listening to music you love is easier than ever. While we may have lost some things along the way, like having patience, moving at a slower pace, a deeper connection, we have also gained so much too, such as no more searching, a great sense of community, more accessibility for people, and this has brought an impact on wider society.
It really has, yeah. I think so. And I think the whole community point as well. I mean, if you look at a show like Drag Race, how it's brought so many people together who previously wouldn't have really connected over a TV show in that way. You know, because our social media is all well and good, but giving us those kind of common talking points or starting points, I think, is such a big thing. I mean, like, so now we're sitting in the OnlyFans lounge.
Yeah, shall we get our drinks ready?
I think let's get
just
our
cheers.
Cheers, ching ching, and sip sip. And do you know, one thing I did want to talk about very quickly in this episode, which I haven't mentioned, is the influence of porn. Now, cover your ears. If our parents are listening. Now, you've never seen a porn film in your life, so
Absolutely
you might want to
not.
cover your ears for this too. But what's really interesting is...
Just started them.
Oh, that was you. I told you. You lied to me, honestly. But thanks for giving me the toy that you used. That was great. Freebies, product placement. But what's amazing is while I was researching like kind of the older kind of like technologies, porn has played a huge part in influencing what technology we take. So for example, you know, back in the day with VHS tapes, there was also another format called Betamax.
That was an American competitive format, wasn't it?
So they were actually both parallel competitors, but because the porn industry went for some
with VHS
because it was more affordable, it was easier to distribute, and all of that kind of stuff.
That just launched it.
That launched it, and then all the manufacturers, Panasonic, Sony, said, right, well, you know, we're going to make VHS players, not Betamax players. But then also when it came to things like DVDs as well, again, pirating DVDs, the quality of DVDs, it was the porn industry that pioneered all of that rather than VHS, because it allowed them to create more the distribution and make more money from it.
Because it was Laserdiscs, wasn't it?
Laserdisc, yeah. And then the whole thing of SD, standard definition, HD, 4K, all of this is, you know, like even like streaming sites, something like YouTube and things. It's the porn industry that's actually learned how to.
Must have, I remember when we were younger, that was like a really big popular thing, but that was already.
But handling all those handling all those videos and all those servers, all that kind of infrastructure, it was the porn industry that kind of pioneered that, because they would try it out, and if they could successfully adapt it to their model, then the wider industry could follow. And
this is why VR is meant to be the next big thing.
Well, this is it. Once the porn industry crack how to use VR successfully, and I think it's like, you know,
there's a lot of people that are going to be working from home again.
Exactly. I don't think people are ever going to leave the house. But it's interesting how these like companies, they don't really play that up, but they're very, you know, the whole kind of like their Silicon Valley literally is very much in touch with the porn industry. There's like jokes apart, like, you know, like dirty videos apart, there's a very serious side of commerce and business and technology, and I think it's just fascinating that
we need to buy shares and whatever the porn industry are pushing next.
Yeah, absolutely, because I think it's so interesting that it's porn, because I think there's so many people who like in the, you know, who don't watch porn, who'd be like, oh, I'm not buying that, or I would never do anything like that.
We need to be careful with the Diary of a Someone. Oh, not to click on the wrong link.
Exactly. Well, no, the Diary, who knows that when it goes to VR, can you imagine? Wow. So people will be able to put on a VR headset and see what we're seeing. That is going to be very scary. But you know what they would see that would like totally change everything? That would be the podcast is mine.
No, it's mine. We hope that you've enjoyed listening to The Podcast Is Mine. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our podcast and share it with a friend. You can also follow us on all the socials. On Instagram, TikTok, Facebook and YouTube, we are The Podcast Is Mine. And then on Twitter, we are Podcast Is Mine. Or you can email us at thepodcastismine@gmail.com. Oh, and one more thing, The Podcast Is Mine.